This is for week 5. Recapping back to week 4, just want to remind you, I like to tie these weeks together. Okay, it's important because everything we have each week builds on what's coming afterwards, and what we have this week is built on what came before. And last week, week 4, we were in our third week of looking at risk management techniques. Last week we looked at the Delphi technique, brainstorming, and the Crawford slip method. And also, I want to make a point that if you have any questions about any of these you don't understand or a little bit difficult, or send me an email, send me a note, contact me, call me, voicemail me, text me, whatever, so I can clear up the cloudiness or mystery or whatever. I want you to have clear understanding and be able to have these basic skills as you leave the course, and be able to develop on them as you continue on in your careers. This week, week 5, we're going to talk. We have the SWOT analysis, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. 4 quadrants of a grid that has 2 columns and 2 rows, and in one we'll put the strengths, and the other weaknesses, and then opportunities and threats. Second tool will be our checklist, and then a very interesting one will be risk breakdown structure, and those go along with in Pritchard in chapters 13, 14, and 15. And then take a look at that PMI practice standard, chapter 5. That brings a lot to the table too. I probably haven't said enough about that text, but I hope you're reading it and staying with it, because it also comes at this subject a little bit differently, but it presents a perspective that you need to grasp and understand. So please make sure you do all the assigned reading. So this week we want a little bit more into risk and talk about the risk impact and the fundamentals of that. To this point, we've talked about your perspective, how you should conduct yourself, the way you need to see the project, represent the team, some of the strengths, some of the things about risk. I hope that risk is becoming you're becoming more comfortable with risk, in the sense that you realize that you have been a risk manager, managing risk in your own lives and maybe in those lives around you to some extent. And so it's not that you don't know how to manage risk and that you haven't done a good job. Point is here that what we're doing is we're managing risk not for ourselves, but not for a person, but for the project, and that's where our focus has got to be. If we start to look at more on the basics, and we say, what is the risk impact to the fundamentals? And what are the fundamentals? The fundamentals are the 3 axes, the 3 elements that as a project manager you commit to deliver for your project. In other words, as a project manager, I make a commitment to achieve the project goal by hitting the budget, cost, schedule, and performance, and hitting all 3 of those at the same time, and that is when the goal is achieved, when the project is over. I don't run over the cost budget, I don't run late on the schedule, and I don't meet the performance requirements. Also on that vein, I don't exceed the performance requirements. That's extremely important, because if we go beyond the performance requirements of the project, what we're doing is really going out of scope, and we're really spending budget and schedule time. We're spending that on additional capability or additional performance, which is not required and not specified. It may seem prudent, but if it is prudent or if it is really needed, then we have to go through a process and have a formal change authorized and approved for the project, because what that'll do is that'll impact our cost and our schedule. So what we're looking at when we're really talking about risk, what is the risk impact? Impact to what on the project? What is the impact to the cost, to the schedule, and to the performance? And when we get down to basics law, like Murphy's Law, what can go wrong? So when we talk about a cost risk or a schedule risk or a performance risk, what are we really saying there? Well, a cost risk. A cost risk could be that we're going to buy some materials and we have a budget for the materials. We may even have quotes for the materials. But by the time we go to procure the materials, maybe the quote is expired. And when we go back to the vendor tells us the price is increased. That's a cost risk. A cost risk might be we have expected that we have some organized labor that'll be working on the job, and they're going through some contract discussions during the course of the project, and we expect them to achieve a certain increase in their compensation, and so we've figured out what that would be. But what happens is, in fact, it could be higher than that, which would be a cost impact to us, an adverse cost impact to us. A schedule risk. What's a schedule risk? Well, a schedule risk could be we have made arrangements for some subject matter experts from another department to join the project, and we need the tasks that they're going to be working on to start in 5 weeks or 6 weeks, a certain time. And we've made arrangements and with the department manager, and we know who the people are going to be, and we got commitments for them. But when that time comes that they're supposed to join our project to start the tasks, there may have been other priorities in the company or other work in the company that they can't be released from. And we may have to be delayed and not be able to get their services for a couple of days or even weeks or longer. That would be a schedule impact to the project. These are the kind of things that we have to think about regarding the project. Schedule risk. A performance risk might be that we're developing some software, and it's supposed to go through certain routines, and it's supposed to solve some expression or something like that. We put the algorithm together, we go through the design, we go through the coding, and then we're going through testing. And as we go through testing, we find out that if we run the same algorithms 10 times in a row, it comes up with a wrong answer twice. And that would be like an 80% rate, and that wouldn't be good enough. We need a 100% rate. We need it to hit the right solution every time. That would be a performance risk, and that would require us to spend more schedules, more people, more resources, more cost on bringing that performance up to the requirements for the contract. And so you can see a couple of examples here of what we talk: cost risk, schedule risk, performance risk. When we talk about the impact, it is really important that we look at all the dimensions. And that's what this column is that just moved into the right. And what do I mean by that? If we have a cost risk, that means there's an impact on cost. We understand that. I gave you an example of that. But could that fundamental cost risk also impact our schedule? Could it also affect our performance? In other words, when we're evaluating a cost risk impact, we've also got to consider that cost risk impact may not operate in isolation, just impacting cost, but it could also have an impact on schedule or an impact on performance. When we look at a schedule risk, for instance, I mentioned somebody, subject matter experts from another department. Say that what we're going to do is bring in consultants, and we bring in consultants. Not only can we not get them when we need them, which would be a schedule impact, but we also find out that they're going to be more expensive when we get them, and that would be a cost impact. So our schedule, of the fundamental schedule impact to the project, also has an impact on cost. It could also have an impact on performance. What if the skill set of the consultants that were coming in were not going to be at the highest level that we specified, but they may be at one level down? Or for instance, maybe what we do is we're getting those subject matter experts from that department, and the particular ones we need, senior engineers or whatever, are not available for 3-4 months, but we can get junior engineers in 2 months. So now we would have an impact on schedule, impact on cost, and we'd also have an impact on performance from a scheduling risk impact. And likewise, we can go through the same thing on performance. That algorithm that didn't pass the test 10 times out of 10, only 8 out of 10. Well, now we got to figure out, what do we got to do to improve it, to increase its design, enhance its design or whatever, so that performance 10 out of 10 is met. Well, if we have to put more labor on it, if there's more work required, that's a cost. That performance impact is going to have an impact on cost. And if there's more work we got to do to improve that algorithm, that's also going to have an impact on schedule. So my point to you is this, and what I want you to get out of this is that when we look at a cost risk or a schedule risk or a performance risk, we also have got to look at if it has any impact on the other parameters. If it's a cost risk, does it have an impact on schedule? Is there an impact on performance? Schedule risk. It's going to have an impact on schedule. Will it have an impact on cost? Will it have an impact on performance? Likewise, performance risk. Will it have an impact on schedule as well as cost? These are significant things that need to be considered when we are trying to identify and evaluate the impact of a risk. Given that basic concept of how we have to look at risks and try to make sure we can get our arms around them. In your text, you've already gone through this. The flow charts that I showed you last week went through this, but the general approach, a simple, straightforward general approach to doing a risk analysis, trying to get your arms around the risks you need to take care of or be watchful for your project. The first thing is you want to just try and identify all your risks and get a list of them. You can organize them by developing categories of risk: cost risk, schedule risk, performance risks, or you can do it any other way. You can do it by technical element or by subject matter expert. Any way that it makes it easy on you to get you to understand the various risks and how you might see, is there any commonality between the risks, or how can you understand them better. It's also important that, given a number of risks and whether you're developing categories for them or not, take a look at several questions. List a lot of questions for each category. Record the questions. Just say the questions on each risk or each category to see what it fleshes out. What dimensions, what parameters about the risk does it bring to your attention? Does it help you understand the risk better so that you can come up with some plan how you're going to mitigate it, how you're going to deal with the risk in a very cost effective way? Every question should probe at a possible weakness. In other words, every question that you ask should probe at some uncertainty, some risk, some weakness in the project plan, the project performance, project staff, project budget, project cost estimates, every aspect of the project. Every aspect of any vendors or materials you have to buy, any subcontracting you have to do, any partnering you have to do with your customer or anybody else. As you continue through the process of monitoring your risks from time to time after you've developed your first set of risks and you've completed your first risk assessment and come up with your risk management plan, every time, periodically, you will review your risks. You will find out which ones are still relevant, which ones may have gone away and you can forget about. You may decide to add new categories or new questions. Anything that helps you flesh out and identify risks for your project, it really serves you very, very well. Here's an answer. Here's some sample type questions about 3 different categories. And the first one is about the project team. How many people are on the team? What percent of the team is fully dedicated? Which team members will spend less than 20% on the project? Quite frankly, when I have people that are going to spend a small amount of time on the project, I get very concerned about that. For instance, if I'm going to share a team member with another project or some other function, and I'm only going to get them half time, I would rather not have that half time either mornings or afternoons, because I may not get them. If I get them, supposed to get them in the afternoon, they may be working on something in the morning, and comes noon, they can't just leave it. They got to finish it. I may not see them till 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I may not get my 50% of the time. Likewise in the morning, if I have them mornings and not in the afternoons. I also go through learning curves and what I call spooling up curves, getting back to where I knew what I was doing yesterday. And that happens 5 times a week for 4 hours if you're getting somebody half time. What I'd rather do is, if I'm going to have a person half time, I'd rather have them for 2.5 days, either from Monday morning to Wednesday noon or Wednesday noon through Friday evening. That way, there's a continuity there in the work that's being done. That means there's more productivity, better efficiency. And so how I look at having people on the team for a less than full time, it's very important how that is done, and because it will deal with risks about that element. What is the experience level of the team? Have the team members worked together before? What do I need to do about helping the team bond and grow together and become a solid monolithic team that works well together? Is the team spread out geographically? Today, on projects that most all of us are on, we have virtual teams all over the world. And if they're halfway around the world or a third of the way around the world, their time zones are so significantly different from wherever we are that it's very hard to put together meetings. I would rather not use just telephone conference calls. I'd rather use conference calls because there's better communications. We can see body language, we can see expression, we can see the use of hands. We have much better communications that way. What about the customer? Will the customer change current processes to use the product? Is the project that we're doing to deliver to the customer, whether it's an internal or external customer, is the customer going to be doing something different? Is the business changing because of the project deliverables that we're going to be delivering to that customer? Does there need to be some kind of technology transfer? Do we need to be training part of the customer staff so that they can handle this new product or service? Okay. Where is the customer? Are they in different companies, different departments, companies? Are they in different countries? Is there a difference in the we work? Do we have the same common precepts, the cultures that we live in? We may have to become sensitive to that and be able to deal with the customer's representatives in a way that does not conflict with their culture or anything like that. So there's a lot of differences that we need to think about regarding the customer. Another category, technology. Is this technology new to the development team? Okay, or is it going to be new to the users or customers? That's when we get into the discussions of technology transfer and training and things of that nature. Okay, is there any new or leading edge technology? In aerospace companies, when they have projects for the government and all that, there's normally a lot of leading edge technology, new technology, and that means there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainty about how well the technology is going to be able to reduce to practice and applied in whatever the deliverable is for that project, for that customer. So this is a sample of risk profile questions, the type of questions you can come up with and ask. You don't have to have a boilerplate. If you ask these questions, these 12 questions, that doesn't mean you've done your job and you've asked everything that needs to be asked. This is just a small sample of the kind of questions or the kind of considerations you need to make regarding identifying risk. Here's a flow chart that fundamentally gives us a sense of the relationship, how things flow together when we're involved in risk and where it comes from. On the left, the box on the left is talking about during definition. In other words, as there's a problem being recognized or an opportunity being recognized where a project may result from this or may be commissioned for planning to get started, everyone that's involved in that will contribute, and that's where it means all stakeholders contribute. And any risks that are identified there, everyone contributes to it. And usually, out of the definition comes some type of concept. You don't really fully get a statement of work, responsibility matrix, and communications plan. That comes out of the planning. But the essence, the basic requirements that will drive the statement of work, drive the responsibility matrix and communications plan, will come out of that definition. And then during the planning cycle, as the planning team, the project manager and several subject matter experts and whoever else may be involved in it, maybe a customer representative, when you're working on the schedule and budget development or risk management portion of the planning, any one of these places you can identify new risks, and you should be ready to write down the risks. You don't have to evaluate them right then. When you go into the focused activity of risk analysis and risk management and what you're going to do with your risks, that's when you take all these risks and then you start to work through them. But out of the planning process, you have two major elements you want to really consider, and that's your schedule and budget development, and that's your network, your WBS, your schedule, your resources, your task definition. That's looking at how your costs build up and what your costs are, resource loading and leveling, and all of those elements. And during that whole process, you keep track on those things that somebody might raise a question about or have some uncertainty about, because that can identify a risk. And what you want to do is capture that idea and you want to capture that thought, because that could be a new risk. And then as you get into the risk management analysis, where you're really getting into putting your risk management plan together, all right, at that point, you want to pick up all those risks and you go through them. As this diagram demonstrates, many of these deliverables, risk monitoring, many of the scope, the responsibility statement of work, communications plan, they're iterative. They go back and forth, and you iterate on them as you continue through the planning process. And it's throughout this entire process that you identify potential risks, and you want to keep track of them. And I know I'm being redundant, but I need to say this over again because it's so important, that this is the best place for you to capture risks and start capturing the risks, so that when you do get into the focused risk management process, you have these to start with, and then you will have a lot to work with, and you will come out of your risk management process with some sense of satisfaction that you have identified a significant amount of all the risks that the project is subject to. Conclude what I want to discuss with you this week. Next week, in week 6, we're going to go through some root cause identification analysis. That's really interesting. Risk register tables, which will help you very much when you're going through your risks and you're starting to categorize your risk and evaluate your risks. And then project templates for working with your project planning and project risk. And that's going to take you through chapters 16, 17, and 18 in Appendix B of Pritchard. And then please make sure you read the PMI Practice Standard Appendix D. There's some very, very interesting information in there. And I wish you a good week. I hope that everything's going well for you. I know that you're turning in your case studies this week, and I look forward to going through those and getting back with you. You have a great day.